Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We've just been getting organized up here, and we're ready to start the presentation here. Oh, how about now? Okay, I just have to be really close to the microphone, I guess. But that's all right. If I get quiet at any point, just raise a hand, give me a shout, let me know. Same with our other speakers as we come up. Maybe I'll try to bring this a little bit closer in the meantime as well. But while I'm doing that, I will also just give a quick welcome and an introduction. So my name is Alex Dagon. I'm the director of the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center. And I'm here tonight as part of the Friends of the Turtle group and many other community leaders, native and non-native, who are working to save the turtle, bring awareness, and talk about the significance in the past, present, and future of the turtle building here in Niagara Falls. So I'm also joined here with a couple of colleagues of mine. I have Carlos Skopinski here as well, and Dr. Nander, and Michael Murrow, who's going to be joining us here in just a few moments. So we'll all be kind of talking at some of the different slides. I don't want to take too long now since we just started a few minutes late and we have a lot to cover. But I just want to thank you all again for being here. I want to thank the NACC, the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center, this wonderful and incredible space that we're in, for hosting this event for us tonight, so we really appreciate them. And I also want to thank everybody who's been involved thus far and who has put forth any memories, ideas, or anything that has led to kind of these efforts so far. So with the welcome kind of underway there, I also want to just talk really quickly about some guidelines for tonight and how the program is going to run. So we have PowerPoint slides here. This is also streaming through a webinar as well. And we're going to do the presentation component of this evening first, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. And when we get to that point, I just ask that everybody is respectful of one another who are asking questions or sharing feedback. We have a mic up here at the front that you can come up to speak to. Unfortunately, it's not cordless, so we can't come to you tonight, so you'll have to come forward with any questions and things like that. So we'll save time at the end for that. We're really looking forward to answering your questions, hearing some more of your stories and memories, and anything else that you want to bring to us after we give our presentation. So again, we're going to give some information, some background, and just really talk about the turtle here tonight. Okay, so I think I'm just looking at my notes, making sure I'm covering everything. So I'm going to move into our Turtle Land acknowledgement for this evening. So the Friends of the Turtle acknowledges that the land upon which we gather is the traditional territory and the ancestral home of the neutral nations, the Anishinaabe nations, and the nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. In addition, we recognize that Niagara Falls is part of the Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Belt Covenant of Friendship, Good Minds and Peace. This covenant, established in 1142, is an agreement between the people of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. The dish symbolizes the land upon which they coexist peacefully through mutual respect and understanding. The spoon symbolizes the people living on the land, as one family living, hunting, gathering, and fishing the waters they share surrounding the Great Lakes. We also recognize that Niagara Falls is part of the Two-Row Wampum Treaty, an agreement between the people of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Dutch government in what is now New York State. The Two-Row Wampum represents an agreement that we are to coexist on the river of life. One path represents an indigenous canoe, and the path represents a European ship, the second path, traveling down the same river together. The indigenous canoe carrying indigenous laws and culture, the European ship carrying their laws and culture. This treaty is the basis of all treaties indigenous nations have with European nations and governments of the Western Hemisphere since 1613. We also recognize that indigenous people are the original caretakers of these lands and are the original caretakers of the Great Lakes, its islands, the upper and lower Niagara rivers, its estuaries, surrounding lands, and all that lives, grows in and on them. We also recognize that Niagara Falls is still the home to many indigenous people from across Turtle Island who live alongside Euro-American settlers newcomers, and people whose ancestors were enslaved by colonizers across the Western Hemisphere and the Caribbean. We honor the indigenous people of this land for their history of welcoming people of many nations to the beauty and natural wonder that is Niagara Falls. We are grateful to live and work on this land. Now I would like to invite Jordan up here for the Thanksgiving address.
Una wakahes, no Reawakening, Gidre, or Reawakening. Una has na et wadike yet with na ina agagwani, Yaguatike Gothnik Hanika Digo Wadake. Una Hagawa Yaguate Lucha Disney and one and her out has these Matwa Aquagate on the Mayunik, you want to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot, you want a roof now, Disney, twin hot, our gay hot, you want off knock yet. On a Nayunik, hot you want to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot. Get your gay hot man, who our gift off knock yet. On a Nayunik, hot you want to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot. Uya gay hot man, what gay the ragu hot. We said Akadachi, on a Nayunik, hot you want to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot who twin gay hot man. What guy the ragu hot, when Tekwa Agadachi, hot gonna get right, Ujika was a head red these nigga chat was. On a Nayunik, hot me what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot. Unik what to get hot man. On a Nayunik, hot me what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot gar you gay hot man. Who's hot again. Waka in a ragu ha aqua agadachi, on a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot. Who read a gay hot man. Waka in a ragu ha ujiketa agadachi. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot G and gay hot man. Waka in a ragu ha stakwi agadachi. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has hit Dr. Gawarakia. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot. Yagwariasu to gay hot na heat na gay haka. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has Yagwariachi heat on a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has Yagwasu Rathan Yaka. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has twin hot you centered our rich gift. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has hit up to Gaya get with stock check I get root. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una has na twice got to get right and was Disney and Yakin here out has hot Raweliana Tarikyawakia. On a Nayunik, honey, what to get root and Una Jopwa to get right. Una you what with us Nasu. Hot twin the with Yigwa Neha Gwis or Yigwa Neha. Hot Yigwit to get her Neha Tana with Are Hane Togayas, where we with her Hakana her attention. On a Nayunik, what to get her gift, Una Jopwa to get her. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. All right, moving on to our first part of our slides here. Let me just get that organized with you. Okay, we can move to the welcome and the agenda slide. Great, this this is just a little overview of what we're going to go through here tonight with the different speakers and information that we're going to be sharing with you. You can go to the next slide. And we've completed this, so one more next slide, thank you. Okay, so just a little quick background just on the history. And I guess I'm going to try to kind of turn and read it as we're here. But the Turtle is an iconic Niagara Falls, New York building. Many of you are familiar with it and have intimate knowledge of its spaces. It housed the former Native American Center for the Living Arts, designed by Northern Arapaho Wind River Reservation architect Dennis Rhodes. The center opened in 1981. It was a forerunner for Indigenous museology with contemporary art exhibitions, Indigenous theater performances, and traditional arts and contemporary music programs built to celebrate the Indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. Built in the shape of a turtle, the zoomorphic turtle structure symbolizes the Haudenosaunee creation story in which the earth is created on the back of a sea turtle. The building's placement, with its head facing the American Falls, is significant since Niagara Falls is a sacred site for the Haudenosaunee people. The three-story building has 67,000 square feet with eagle skylights. We had a slideshow playing on here and showing many different pictures of the turtle in different times. So hopefully you were able to check that out as we were waiting to get started today. The building was funded with $6 million from the Federal Economic Development Administration with additional support from the National Endowment of the Humanities and the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. So there was a significant story, a creation story of the turtle itself, and many, many folks coming together to bring it to life here in Niagara Falls. Next slide, please. Lots to read. Maybe I'll kind of run down and I'll let you read through it too. The Art Center closed in 1995. The building was purchased from the City of Niagara Falls in 1997 by Niagara Falls Redevelopment, a private firm owned by Howard and Edward Milstein, real estate developers in New York City. It has been vacant since then. NFR has proposed to demolish the Turtle building for new development. The Niagara Falls Historic Preservation Commission on January 18th voted unanimously to approve recommending that the City Council grant historic landmark status for the turtle, using city landmark standards, which aim to, among other goals, protect and enhance the landmarks and historic districts that represent distinctive elements of Niagara Falls historical, architectural, and cultural heritage, and which support and stimulate the city's economy. So really, we've made quite a lot of progress on the turtle and moving it towards local landmark designation. So we'll talk about that just in a little bit as well. In the lead up to the unanimous vote by the commission, it received over 500 letters of support for the landmark designation. More than 1,200 people nationwide signed this online petition and wrote letters, including 253 city residents. More than a dozen people spoke in favor of the landmark status in public comments at a commission hearing. The lone dissenter was NFR, the owner of the building. At a February 21st City Council meeting, more than a dozen people spoke in favor of the landmark status, once again, including students from the Niagara Falls Native American Youth Club, which I forgot to give them a huge shout out and thank you in the welcome and in the beginning. The Native American Youth Club has really took a forward lead on advocacy for the turtle. They have spoken at the city council meetings. They've helped us with this event tonight, and they're absolutely incredible. And you should definitely meet them and come to the city council meeting on the 6th and hear them speak again. All right, next slide, please. I think we're going to skip ahead here, right, Carl?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. If you could go ahead. We're going to come back to the videos in just a little bit. We're just kind of rearranging a little bit for timing. So we have the opportunity slides here, and Carl, would you like me to turn this over to you or Dr. Miller?
Okay, perfect. Why don't we go with Dr. Miller? So he has another engagement in Orchard, so I just want to make sure.
Can we go forward a few slides?
Keep going.
Going.
Keep going. Go. It's the one with.
Yeah,
Right
there we go.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Reawakening. I am the CEO and co-founder of this company, Lumia, which uses data science and econometrics to measure really hard to quantify outcomes, things like the environment and its impact on businesses in the future, or things like mental health, which in this case is what I'll be doing. Next slide, please. I set up. Next slide. So just to give everybody like a state of play here, I think everyone sort of understands that there's centuries of historical trauma that has been sort of baked in to a lot of the lives of indigenous native peoples in these areas. And the statistics really bear that out. Every single statistic you can find essentially shows that natives have worse outcomes across the board. So when it comes to premature mortality, suicide risk, substance abuse, and PTSD rates, they're about 3 times that of the average American. Now, the sort of silver lining here is that some work has been done to try and integrate native culture with the sort of fostering of improving mental health. And that happened with Johns Hopkins University, that created this family spirit intervention that sort of helps teen youth sort of carry through their culture, and essentially the outcomes of that study have long and everlasting sort of effects down the line that essentially we're trying to map to this area here at the turtle. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is data from a paper that basically did the largest survey of Native youth and regular sort of Caucasian Americans. And you can see the distributions are really stark. So the dark bars are the Native American distribution. And what this is a survey called the PHQ-9, which is a survey on depression that is sort of the standard in the field. And you can see that the distribution really tilts into the severity for Native populations. Now, the whole point of why I'm up here is to try and translate this number into something that's an economic dollar. And that's a very difficult thing to do. But I'll show you sort of what we did at a high level. Next slide. I won't bore everybody through the entire details here because everyone will fall asleep or leave. But basically, we took that data and mapped it to a statistic called the disability adjusted life year. And then we mapped that to economic dollars. And there are many studies that do this. This isn't like me just throwing random numbers at this sort of problem. This approach has been done sort of time and again, and I borrowed approaches of many academics in the past. And the bottom line number that we were able to get to for the mitigation of historical trauma and mental health that the turtle would alleviate would be $10 million per year. And that number is likely an underestimate, mainly because the data I used was for only United States indigenous within a 100-mile radius, so I didn't include anybody in Canada. We didn't include anyone who might visit from sort of far and away. And we didn't quantify something that I think most people would agree is a main goal here, which is just educating the general public about sort of history and indigenous culture. And that's all not included here. What I strictly sort of zoomed in was the ability to alleviate the sort of mental health through community involvement. And that number comes out to $10 million a year, which is pretty staggering. Does anybody have any questions on this approach? I'm happy to. Sure.
When you went back to things, where did you just start like from Canada?
No.
Wasn't yours from like Toronto?
Oh, that's where I do my PhD.
Right. So it goes from Toronto to here?
I can tell you the data that was used was the 2020 census data for a 100-mile radius from Buffalo all the way out to about Cayuga Lake, maybe Finger Lakes. But when you go into Canada, they don't publish the different First Nations territory population statistics. So we really didn't have any real data.
It goes from First Nations to Six Nations.
The First Nations is the group, like, just like Indigenous, like Native Americans and Canadians, it's First Nations. But it went to a 100-mile radius. We identified what First Nation territories they were within that 100-mile radius, but we couldn't get any census, any population data that would have been used to be when we calculated this number. So that was why we just couldn't have it.
Yeah,
Couldn't help it.
and the point of this analysis is not to say the number is exactly 10 million. The point is, even being quite conservative, you get really large estimates to the.
But if you stack like Native Americans up against white Americans, it makes it look a million times worse.
But that is
I mean, I'm just saying.
the state of affairs.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it was three times?
Yeah.
3 times.
If you just go back one slide, you can see in the distribution.
Yeah, the distribution.
Sorry?
I just was wondering why there's no other race. You know, there's other demographics.
This study only looked at these 2 races. It wasn't a study that tried to comprehensively answer mental health across all demographics. It tried to look at Native Americans versus others.
Isn't there a Native American community center in Tuscarora Nation and the Seneca Nation and the Mohawk Nation of NACC?
I mean, that would be Six Nations, right? That's not First Nations.
There is no community center in Tuscarora. And all those other territories you name are local community. All those other jurisdictions are in the big island.
The point of this is to start to take a look at what the economic. I'd never make it in Hollywood or stand up. The point of this is to start calculating what the economic benefits would be for the community. And with this data, we're starting to look at what the negative impacts are into the community as it exists. Because that $10 million translates into additional health care costs for folks. And that is a burden onto the community. If you can work to correct that, right, we can start moving in that direction, that hopefully that curve, right, that 3 times will start curving down where it won't be as costly on a particular community.
Yeah, I notice some confused looks on people's faces, so I can just explain a bit more of what that number is composed of. So basically, things like graduation rates would increase due to a community center in an indigenous area. That's what previous studies have found out, where all indigenous sort of youth were surveyed, and then the areas that had cultural centers had higher graduation rates, all else equal. So things like that then tie into likelihood to be employed and then earn more money for the community and so on and so
Thank you so much. We're going to jump back into our slide deck here. So we're kind of covering a couple different topics. Yes.
Did I miss something? Are we now talking about the purpose of the building?
We are we're talking about giving an example of economic development and how the turtle could serve. So there's a little bit of bouncing. We're going to get back into the opportunity slides here in just a minute, and then we're going to jump back to Q&A at the end. We had to restructure a little bit of our presentation, so thank you everybody for bearing with us on that. We'll come full circle as we kind of continue to go through. So I believe we should be moving into back to the opportunity slide. Let me just figure out exactly for our slide changer up there where we're going to be. Let's see. And I know, Carl, you're going to be up next on the opportunity slide. So you might get a little faster than me. Great.
Well, the next slides we really have are the videos. So you can go to the very first video. And Michael, do you want to speak to these? Okay. In 2016, a few folks from the Native American Community Services Group got the opportunity to be inside of the turtle, and they took some videos of what the building looks like inside. You know, there's a lot of things that go up on the internet, right? The roof is collapsed. You know, I hear that a lot. The roof collapsed. Well, the roof didn't collapse. There's some spots where there's water leakage, or was water leakage, but it's not in the condition that a lot of people on the internet and in the press have been saying. It's a lot of half-truths. It definitely needs work, but then again, this was built in when? This was built in the late 70s. So even your house, right? Your house needs updating, right? Things need to change over time. So this was just to give a little bit of a view of what the interior looked like back then. Is there anything you want me to add?
No, please go to the next slide.
Okay, you can go to the next one. Should be a second one after this, I think. That's the Eagle skylight that faces, I believe, north. I got that right. And what was kind of neat about it is when the sun shone, it projected the eagle on the floor, which is a dance floor. So I think it's pretty amazing. Dennis Sun Rhodes, who developed this as the architect, also developed the University of Minnesota Native American Student Center, which is in the shape of an eagle. And it is if you have a chance, go on the internet and take a look at it. It's a pretty impressive building. What else have we had? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about opportunity. Niagara Falls, like a lot of locations, has piles of master plans. For those folks who have been around here for quite a long time, every couple of years they're rolling out some sort of master plan. There's an effort going currently to do a master plan for the north end of the Rock Moses. There's a master plan that's going to be looking at the waterfront, even though a waterfront plan was created in 2014. But there are a number of plans that have been put out there. If anybody wants to take a look at any of these plans, go to UB Regional Institute. Go to their library, their document library, put in Niagara Falls, and there's a whole list of plans that are listed there. Basically, this particular plan said Niagara Falls needs a world-class visitor attraction and a world-class building to be the centerpiece of a system of natural and cultural heritage attractions, and to develop other heritage sites. I mean, how many locations do we have in Niagara Falls? You have the Turtle. There's also the Adams Transformer building, and that's been vacant since who knows when. There was if you look at the Developed Woods School, the dormitory, I think now is finally kind of being looked at by the state. But there was another piece of that of that location, it was was called the Stone Carriage Barn. And that was neglected by the Parks Department that walked past it twice a day for 20-something years, and that building collapsed because nobody took the time to try to save it. And that building could have been used for a cafe, a small art center, some sort of amenity center for people going to DeVoe Woods. So it was an opportunity that some people tried to save, but they never went and actually got it done. And what was really shameful is that building was lost just feet away from the New York Parks the office in that Parks Department. And what did Niagara Falls get for it? They got a brick bathroom made of the bricks of that Civil War era building. And we need to start looking at these buildings and trying to figure out how can we put the buildings that are currently out there in play to make it better for the city. I look at things from a cultural perspective, but I also look at things from an economic perspective, right? My background is in economics. I spent, over a decade working on the east side of Buffalo. I am not from Niagara Falls, trying to look and try to redevelop businesses and buildings in what was the old Broadway Fillmore neighborhood at the Martin Luther King business area. And it's important to save these buildings, but it's also more important to put them to use. You could save a building, and this is what I think a lot of people have been saying about the Turtle King. You're going to save it, then what, right? The then what is coming. The group that was formed to kind of help move this forward has only been in existence for a couple months since the landmark application started. Right? The current owner had the building for over 2 decades, and nothing has happened to it. Could you advance the slide, please? Another report called Rethinking the Niagara Frontier mentioned that obstacles to progress identified including lack of coordination in many areas, lack of political cooperation and consensus, local pride, local understanding of the region. The potential benefits, however, were clear. More visitors, staying longer, spending more, creating more jobs, and improving the quality of life for residents and a better self-image for the whole region. This is a report that came out of the Global Tourism Institute that was used, I think, for the Centennial Parks Project. The problem that Niagara Falls has in a lot of areas, including Buffalo, is that there's a tourist season, right? The tourist season, probably starts from mid-April to maybe October. And when you go downtown here, it is just bustling, right, during the summer. But what happens in the winter months? The owner wanted to take down the building and put a hotel up. Well, hotels are great, right? But it's seasonal employment. And how can a family that's living in Niagara Falls have a seasonal job and try to get ahead? It's impossible, right? The area needs year-round cultural destinations that can drive traffic into Niagara Falls during those off months to create additional economic benefit for hotels that keep staff around longer, can help support businesses. Just imagine if you come to Niagara Falls and you see these different things and you just didn't quite get to everything, right? And you have some, Dad, I really want to go see this turtle. I really want to go see the underground Reawakening Heritage Center. So typically what happens is what happened to me when I took my boys out west, right? We went to, I can't remember exactly, I think it was in Denver. And we didn't get around to where we wanted to get to. So we ended up staying another 2 days, and it cost me another hotel, a couple hotel rooms, it cost us some dinners, it cost us some going to different attractions. That's what you want to see, right? You want to get people to stay that extra half a day, that extra day, or maybe a longer weekend, to be able to drive. There's 9 million people that come to Niagara Falls each year, and that's even during the pandemic, right? The Canadian folks couldn't cross the border, but people were, and they couldn't fly, but people were coming from all over the United States to Niagara Falls to see the falls. And we're also within an hour and a half of the 4th largest city in North America, in metropolitan Toronto. And having another attraction, a year-round attraction, would absolutely help this community out, because it doesn't do anything for the community right now. The opportunity. This is the Niagara Communities Comprehensive Plan for 2030. This plan was created by Niagara County. And it basically states that the current visitation numbers indicate a profound inability to capture a significant portion of an otherwise strong market. They need new and upgraded lodging and attractions to also prevents having more folks stay. These factors, coupled with the existing poor quality, appearance, physical condition of the tourist areas and industry, and must be addressed in advance to provide the necessary growth, and then support growth, which will support growth of other commercial and residential sectors. I can't remember the name of the building. I know it is the Q building. I think it's Niagara. One Niagara. Thank you so much. One Niagara. There are some folks on our committee mentioned that the Native folks would hold dances there. It was called the Thundering Waters, and they held 5 shows a day for 7 days a week at $22 per person to view that show. And I think it was like a half an hour, maybe a half an hour, 45-minute show. And that happened 7 days a week, right? People want to connect to local culture, and I think the Native Community Center, Cultural Center, I think is one thing that we can kind of get to that's going to help this area. One of the things that we also need to do, right, as a committee, is to take a look to make sure we're not stepping on any other culture, indigenous programming or cultural programming that any other cultural institution is doing here. I know Art Park has an indigenous cultural program. Jordan is the interpreter, native interpreter at Fort Niagara. We want to make sure that whatever happens in that building, and we're looking for ideas, right? There's going to be a QR code at the end. Take a picture, give us your ideas, give us your thoughts, right? Everybody wants to start up with, no, it can't be done, it can't be done, it can't be done. We can do this, right? We can do this. This is an idea. This is an idea that it has a journey. And right now, the owner doesn't want to sell the building, right? But if you take a look at it, they spent, I think it was $50,000 a year in taxes, in city taxes, county taxes, and school taxes, on a property for over 2 decades, which is about $1 million. And they haven't produced 1 penny of revenue from that building. And to me, it's a lost opportunity. It's a lost and wasted opportunity. They're business people. We need to come up with a business plan that's going to work, and it's going to take a little time, but we're going to work toward that goal. So if you flip to the next slide, and on the side of the building it says for leasing for development opportunities. Well, we're trying to develop an opportunity here, right? If you have a sign on the building, at least hear people out. Now, everybody wants to be heard. They want to be heard immediately. What's the plan? Where's the money? Who's funding this? It's going to take some time. We realize that, but we're putting together the right people to be able to pull that information together to create a vision. Right? We're going to give the community's vision. I mean, for me, for me. One of the things I'd like to see there is I'd like to see like a bit of a planetarium, right? When I used to be a Cub master, and I took our whole pack to the Science Museum in Buffalo for an overnight stay. And one of the things that we had was a big blown up inflatable planetarium, and everybody crawled inside of it, and they showed that the constellations and things were really simple. And it was kind of neat and everything, But what really won it over for me was when they flipped the deck, right, and they changed it from more of a European constellation to native constellations. It was just a whole different world. And these kids, along with me, was completely mesmerized. And, one thing I remember coming out of that is why the trees turn red in the fall. Is because in winter, right, the fall, the hunter comes across the sky, which is Orion, comes across the sky, takes an arrow, goes after the big bear, hits the bear, the blood that the bear is traveling across the sky falls down on the leaves and turns them red. I mean, these kids were spellbound, right? And it's things like this that we can take a look at. And I'm going to do a plug for, I think it's the Niagara Falls History Department, or the Niagara Falls Library is having an Indigenous astronomy program coming up, I think, in the next month or so. So I encourage everybody to see it because it is just absolutely spectacular. This is, go through this again. You want to go through the landmark? Yes. Go to the landmark application. Yep. Sorry, we had a bit of a late start, and then, because the TV folks are not else, I can say this. We had some television interviews.
We can't hear you.
Okay. So we had a bit of a late start because we had some TV interviews to get done, and we kind of waited, and then Dr. V had to leave, so we had to that's why we kind of moved things around a bit. So.
Yes, again, thank you everybody for your patience and going on that journey with us. So as Carl was kind of sharing a little bit more opportunity background, there's a lot of discussion that has been happening that we can continue to have, that maybe many of you have also been having amongst your colleagues and friends and family, just around again, what is the purpose and how do we see this in the future? So we're looking to the past to inform our future, and we have to take present actions to do so. So to circle back to kind of the nebulous of everything that's coming together here, we're talking about the landmark application. And so that's what's in front of us now. And as Carl mentioned, we formed kind of an informal group of, which I guess I might talk on 2 slides from now, so hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but museum professionals, native leaders and professionals, and also tourism industry professionals, I've got a whole list, are coming together to see the viability of the turtle. They want to honor the past of the turtle, and also create a sustainable way for the future. And so that this can be something that Niagara Falls can use, that can benefit our community here, and can also be a really important part for visitation. For the 9 million visitors that Carl was just talking about that come through Niagara Falls, the turtle is right there. And the storytelling that we do here is a very special part of that. Cultural heritage tourism is a huge economic driver. And so I know I'm getting a little off course from the landmark application, but I promise I'm bringing it back in just a second. And I wanted to also mention is when I welcomed everybody out here tonight, I mentioned that I work at the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center, and we opened just over 5.5 years ago. And we started as a community effort in the early 2000s to get legislation and earmark funds for that, and had to go through a long process of design and visioning and all that good stuff. And we've been open and we're serving our local population here in Niagara Falls and visitors from all over the world. And I say that because it can be an example of where we kind of are right now with the turtle. There is viability, there are options, there are ideas, and there are ways forward. So that's why we're presenting just a handful of those to start the discussion, to provide information, but there isn't necessarily an exact plan yet, and that's okay. So to go back to why the landmark application. And so the landmark application came, I think we mentioned this a little earlier, it came through from the Niagara Falls Historic Preservation Commission. They put together the application and moved that forward from their end. They recognized and prepared the research to the supporting documentations to say that yes, the turtle should be a local landmark based on laws, guidelines, and all of the other significant historical details, both physical and also on the land and of the stories of which it tells. And so with all of that combined, they put together a local landmark application, and that went through the channels. And so, as Carl mentioned, we've had a lot of folks come together and find out how can we further support that local landmark application and get the word out really about what's going on with the turtle. And so by doing so, the landmark application provides paths forward. It doesn't provide one path, it provides many different paths for the future of the turtle. So first and foremost, it does not allow, or it will not allow demolition, so the turtle will remain, which is a very important part of that preservation, right? It also requires the owner to do upkeep, which serves all of us in Niagara Falls, so that it looks better, and it also looks like we care for it, because we do. And it also shows that to visitors who come from all over the world that walk through Cataract House Park right in front of the turtle. You go to the Red Coach Inn and come to see the falls every day, all year long. So that's a really important part of that landmark application. It also opens up other avenues for funding and support. We've seen examples of this with the Central Terminal in Buffalo and many, many other buildings throughout the region. So this is a pathway to opportunity. It is a pathway for more discussion, for envisioning, and finding ways to bring more folks to the table. And so you're hearing from a couple of us tonight, but there are many people who are trying to get involved here and find a way forward. And we're here to invite you to do that as well. I'll jump to the next slide, please. So who is behind that? I kind of started alluding to that a little bit. Okay, so I had mentioned kind of and Carl had as well, our group that has just kind of started coming together. Friends of the Turtle is a group of community-minded Native and non-Native residents, non-residents and professionals interested in reawakening the turtle for the benefit of the city and region, to add to its economic vitality and provide a year-round destination to help with off-season programming for visitors and area schools, and help address some deficiencies found in the past and current economic development reports. So again, as I was just kind of sharing, it's folks coming together. It's representatives from local community beyond who bring to the table all different levels of lived experience, expertise, and perspective. And that's a really, really powerful thing, to be able to bring us together to have these conversations. It's how we brought everybody here tonight, to be able to talk about this. So we really do invite you to get more involved. The plug for the social media stuff is down there. And as we mentioned, we're just getting organized. The City Historic Preservation Commission put forward the landmark application, and a lot of us decided we need to act, we need to organize, and we need to get together. And that's a lot of how these types of movements get formed. Next slide, please. Here we just outlined a couple of specifics, just so that everybody kind of knows. Like I said, we've got cultural leaders on here, Native leaders on here. We've got folks who run programs, folks who are executive directors, folks who run sites, a lot of cultural leadership, tourism leadership, and folks who have had experience in developing cultural sites from all different levels, from where we are today to top level, and finding funding, development, envisioning, and really making it a community-driven effort first and foremost. Next slide, please. Oh, I think we just have a list of more, just kind of going through there. So there's some of the organizations that are listed. Again, folks from different organizations are involved, listed out here. So Native American Community Services of Erie and Niagara Counties, We've got the Niagara Falls National Heritage Area, Reservation Buffalo Niagara, and other culturals, just to name a few here. And we heard from Dr. Nipper earlier, just sharing the way he's coming to the table here. So there's a lot of ways to look at this and come up with ideas together. But we need to be able to have a path forward, and we want the turtle to be able to be unkept so that we can move into the next phase of opportunities. Okay, I'm just taking a look at time. I'm going to keep on moving. Next slide. Again, I've kind of listed some of these here in just kind of my speaking, hopefully not too rambly. Moving forward, and call to action is next, and I think, Carl, this is where I'm turning it back over to you here, and we probably got a couple minutes before we want to move into Q&A.
Thank you. Boy, I tell you, don't follow something that's taller than you, I guess. It's one of those things. One of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to increase the awareness of this effort, not only in Native communities across North America, but also Native media outlets as well. We want to continue to build on the planning committee. We want to bring in more folks that have economic planning backgrounds. We want to bring in more folks that have an architectural background. I'd like to reach out to the universities, I'd like to reach out to Niagara University and also UB. I'm also involved in a number of urban studios, the School of Architecture and Urban Planning, and I have a lot of connections there. I'd like to have some folks maybe come in and take a look at this and try to figure out what we want to do to kind of move forward a bit. The one thing we did find is we found that 65 architectural drawings of the turtle, the originals that were used to build it. I reached out to the engineering department at City Hall, and they loaned out their set of drawings about a decade ago to a developer, and it never got back to the vault. So the city does not have any of the architectural drawings of the turtle. The city archives, I checked there, they don't have it. History department doesn't have it. Even went as far as contacting the builders of the turtle. The one was in Niagara Falls, I think the other one's in Buffalo. They don't have it. I located them at the University of Minnesota, and we're looking to acquire those 65 drawings to help inform us more about the building, how its inner workings, the mechanics and everything else, so we can start pulling together more data so we can build out a financial model and see where we need to, what programming is going to be there to just kind of support this effort. We also want to encounter some of the negative articles and misinformation. There's a ton of misinformation about this whole thing. I mean, I've read some reports in social media, and just the things that people are saying is like, I'm not sure exactly where you got that from. One big thing was the roof completely collapsed. And I just told them to take a Google satellite view of it, and you could still see the roof is still intact. Just things like that. People just latch on to the more of the negative than anything else. Reestablish a dialogue with the owner to get terms on acquiring and figuring out, can we lease the space, right? Like as I mentioned, there's a sign on the side of the building that says for lease or for development. So, they need to be open to that. I was in communication with them probably from July to about maybe November, not only about the turtle, but also about their data center project, which I don't think is a bad project, but my focus was on the turtle. But none of these projects, have people like us coming out to the community and saying, this is what we're looking to do. What are your thoughts, right? All these projects that are kind of put out there in the ether, I don't think one of them had a public meeting. I don't think one for any of the parks or for the data center. I don't think it had a public meeting, right? And so we're here to coming in front of you to say, this is what we are. This is who we are. This is what we're looking to do. This is a journey for us, and we want to bring everybody on board to get ideas to help flush out this concept, so we can make a proper proposal and lay it in front of the owners and say, this is what we'd like to do because you're looking to either lease or develop the property, and this is our plan to do so. There's a call to action. Share this information with your family and friends. Write the city council and the mayor. Attend the March 6th meeting. The city council meeting is this Wednesday at 6 o'clock. If you want to speak, make sure you get there early because they will pull that little speaking sign-up sheet exactly at 5:50. So get there a little earlier. We do have a friends group email if you have any questions or if you have any thoughts, please put them there as well. This is the call to action. This is the email addresses for the council members and also the mayor. You can find this along with a template email, a template letter of support at Save the Turtle Facebook group. Here's a QR code. There's a QR code for the survey. Please take a snapshot, take the survey. I think there's a little card that it might be at the front of the table. Take that home. We're very interested in your comments. We're interested in what you heard tonight, what you didn't hear, what you liked, what you didn't like. How you may be able to help if you do have a certain skill that you might want to help with. I think that's the best way to be able to do is to gather that information. This is probably going to be one of maybe a couple of meetings. As we start kind of forming this out a little bit more and getting more plans, we'll probably have maybe a few more meetings. One thing I want to leave you with at the end here, this was in the Buffalo News just on February 25th. They did a study that said the arts and nonprofits, large and small, add $381 million to the Western New York economy. And out of all the culturals that were in the counties here in Western New York that were surveyed, the total economic impact, culturals gave about 10,000, created about 10,000 full-time equivalent jobs. And resident household income for all that was over $208 million. There's people that come to this town, they're looking for things to do, they're looking to stay a little longer. This concept is probably one of the best ideas because it's sitting there right now, right? It needs an uplift, right? It needs an uplift, it needs programming, and that's what we're working on. But it doesn't have to be recreated. The template is there. One of the people that we have on our committee used to be the program director at the Smithsonian Institute for the American Indian for over a decade and ran multiple programs out of the Smithsonian in DC. I mean, that is something that most organizations don't have. And that's something we can draw on along with everything else. So that's all I had. Anybody have any questions?
We'll open it up now for Q&A. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm curious. The building's been sitting here vacant. It seems like the people that bought it, they bought it, and then 2 years later, they chose not to do anything with it. What's their reason? Was there something going on economically and at cost that they buy it and then do nothing with it?
Well, I'm going to give a plug here for them, right? A more positive plug. When they acquired the building, I think it was in the year 2000, they reached out to New York Congressional Representative John DeFalce. For those of us who've been around a while, he was our congressman for this area. He also reached out, NFR also reached out to a couple of very prominent Western New Yorkers. I think they also reached out to the University of Buffalo, and they reached out to the Smithsonian to try to reopen the Turtle as a native cultural center under the umbrella of the Smithsonian. That effort did not work. And the reason it didn't work was because, you've got to remember, this is the year 2000. In 2004, the Smithsonian opened the Museum of the American Indian. So they already had a large investment of time and energy getting that museum up and running, first of all, getting it created and getting the programs and everything. So the timing was probably off. So that was, and after that, nothing ever came of it, and it basically sat idle, and it just hasn't been, nothing's been done with it since 2000. Now, I think it was like 2014 or so, they wanted to tear, they had on their webpage, they had a page, they wanted to tear down the terminal and put a 16-story hotel and spa in that location. The problem is, Niagara Falls zoning for that parcel, not only that parcel, but parcels around the river, has a 5-story height restriction. So you can't build a building anything higher than 5 stories. So that prevented that from happening as well. And basically they're sitting on it. And how I got involved was a news article in the Niagara Gazette by Rick Pfeiffer that talked about the Centennial Park project and how the mayor, and this is what the mayor was quoted in the Gazette, and he said that the owner's brother talked to the mayor and mentioned about maybe there's something they can do with the parcel that the city wants to put the park on. But they also want to talk about the height restriction of another parcel that wasn't contiguous to the ones they owned. Because they own, I think, 120 acres in Niagara Falls. I think it's 120. Don't quote me on that. So to me, there was a bit of this quid pro quo, right? If you kind of do this, then we'll do that type of thing. And that that's when I really got really involved with this, because to me, it seemed like it was a backdoor kind of deal type of thing. And that's just my opinion. And I've loved this building ever since I went in back when it first opened. It's just majestic, it's iconic, and it can be put to a higher purpose for the benefit of the city, of this year-round destination. And to tear it down, to put a hotel up, which you can't put up anyway, because if you put up a 5-story hotel, it's not going to be as profitable as a 16-story hotel. So the economics doesn't work there. And you have what? Hotel Niagara right across the street that nothing's happened with that building either. Another hotel is not what Niagara Falls needs right now. It needs year-round destinations. So I want the long way around, and hopefully answer your question.
Okay, and I have one more question.
Sure.
So what is the estimated cost to repair the building?
We have no idea yet. We have no idea. We're just getting into that right now. The first thing we want to do is we want to acquire the drawings, right? To kind of see what's there, what kind of mechanics are there, what type of, it's probably going to update all heating and ventilation. It's going to probably need, new, and I think, Michael was in there in 2016. I think he mentioned that it just needs an uplift, right? Because you're looking at, what, 1970, late 1970 kind of decor. That's all going to need to happen. But there's ways of doing that, right? But you just have to put the right plan in place. The economics needs to work, right? You have to have the right financial, the right programming. And we're starting to get to that point. And, we want to reach out to, the political folks here in Western New York. There's, other entities that we can reach out to look for funding. So I can't answer specifically how much it's going to cost.
What's the ongoing initiative going to be if the council rejects the landmark status on Wednesday?
If they reject it,
Yes.
we're still going to move forward. This is like, we're going to move forward with this.
The designation of the facility as a landmark really is not pertinent to the ultimate objective or agenda of your
Well, I think they go hand in hand. And this is, again, I think they go hand in hand. I think part of it is, if that building was cared for to begin with, and you didn't have trees growing out of the gutters, and you didn't have mold, on the side of the building, and as I think one opinion writer in the Gazette said, it just looks very poorly maintained, right? And even the reports that were out there are saying that the downtown entertainment area needs to be uplifted, right? It needs to look better. And that 9 million people go past that building. It has the name of the owner on the side of the building, right? The corporation, the LLC that owns it. It's an advertisement to say, look how we're neglecting this building, right? A landmark application is going to help get the city to hopefully inspect it, do regular inspections, and maintain the building to at least the standard, until we can come up and get what we need to do to be able to create some viable plans that we can put in front of the owner and say, this is what we're looking to do, and this is how we're going to do it.
So isn't this a code enforcement issue, really?
It's more than that, because even if it was a code enforcement issue, they still would want to tear down the building, right? And to me, I think it's something that the city could really use. The owners are not going to die with this building, right? They're not going to take it with them. So it's going at some point, it's going to go to somebody else, right? So we're looking to try to figure out a way to maybe have that something else be this effort. And there might be other efforts. There might be other people that come up and have other ideas, right? But, you know, the funny thing is, until this landmark application surfaced, there wasn't a peep of the turtle in any community conversation in the last 2 decades. Maybe in 2000, but after that, you didn't hear a peep about the turtle. 9 million people pass that every year. And it's painted in a certain color to make it just blend in and not be noticed. And nobody notices it. People drive by it, residents and visitors drive by it. But this conversation, since the landmark application happened, has really got this discussion going, right? I mean, everybody's here to at least try to learn a little bit more about this project and what we're looking to do. So, to me, that conversation, that community conversation is like gold, because nobody's been talking about these things, right? And what Niagara Falls needs, it needs year-round destinations. It doesn't need a hotel that's going to lay people off in November and then bring them back in April or May.
So who owns it exactly?
The turtle is owned by Niagara Falls Redevelopment Turtle LLC. And the owner is the Milstein family in New York City.
Why? Why do they own it?
No, true.
They own it. Why do they own it? Why do they own it? I don't get it. Like, why?
I can't answer that. I just, I think it's because they want to try to get more economic value out of it. And I understand that they're business people, right? But,
They haven't done anything.
but you put a sign on the side of the building that says for lease or for development.
And that's been since
You need to hear people out, right? And we've only been around for a couple months.
Oh,
They've been around for 2 decades.
They own it since 2000?
They owned it, I think, for 1996. 2000 is when they attempted to get the Smithsonian aligned with it. And if the Smithsonian idea was good back in 2000,
They own it.
it's a great idea in 2024, right?
They own it since 1996.
Correct. So, you had a question? And then I'll get you to
I have a comment.
Sure.
I think the landmark idea is definitely a way to buy time. But everybody here needs to realize where they are right now is in a building that was sold to vendors. This building, the school district sold, and they went to city council to try, and there was It shouldn't be torn down. And talk about maintenance. I remember the Gazette had articles of the big trash cans with plastic liners in them in classrooms with big black plastic coming down the funnel of water from the leaky roof down to these trash cans, and they were having class in those rooms. The school district didn't maintain the building for, I think, a good 15 years. They didn't take care of it. But it's a fine, and it's been a wonderful for all these cultural art things to come out of here. My granddaughter's taking ballet, my son took guitar here. And it's a landmark, this building is a landmark. But it was just Niagara Falls is so quick to tear things down. And we're here, we are the guardians for this, so we have to step up. So I want to encourage you, it could be a really long path, but you can't get discouraged. And prayer helps an awful lot to get this stuff done. It brings down strongholds, and it keeps people up, keeps our faith up and our hope up. So you have to get involved. Or if that building comes down or nothing ever happens of it, it's on your shoulders.
Thank you. Hold on. There's a gentleman over here with a question.
Well, thank you for that. That's a tough one to follow because I was actually focusing on an aspect of your presentation.
Sure.
You mentioned the economic impact was about $208 million.
Yeah, that came from a national study that, I think it's the, I can't remember. There's an Western New York Arts something, Art Services Group. They're the ones who did the canvassing of all those.
Yeah, so that number seems large when you present it that way, but then you break it down and see that there's like 10,000 jobs that would be provided. Those jobs are $20,000 a year for the people who have those jobs. Now,
I can't tell you that because
I'm just saying those are numbers you presented.
Sure.
Those are numbers you presented. So I just challenge you guys as you develop your plan or whatever it is you're going to do to find ways to maybe create jobs that can actually provide people with a living wage.
Sure.
If you're going to get in there, because a lot of jobs that aren't going to give people a stronger ability to take care of their family, feed their family, educate their kids, then I think that we're kind of doing this larger portion of our population a disservice.
Right.
Now, we also talked about during that data scientist portion where they compared, and I get it, this is a Native American landmark. I appreciate that, right? But they only put demographics for Caucasians and Native Americans. Now, if you look at the demographics for Niagara Falls, 65% Caucasian, and if you really break that down, it's going to be even more skewed because all white people aren't just Caucasian. And then you had, about 19% African American, which were very impacted by the same types of things that Native American people were impacted by. And I'm not saying that takes away from what you guys are trying to do for this location. What I do want to say, though, is we can appreciate history, we can appreciate landmarks, but this building already fell once. It already fell once. They didn't pay their taxes on it. The city took it. Niagara Falls Redevelopment bought the building. And now we're in a situation where you guys find this valuable because it's a cool building. I'll be honest, I drove by it after all it was mentioned, and I was like, wow, that's a pretty turtle. That's cool. But before that, I didn't know.
Sure.
Now, I just challenge one more piece of this. Your efforts are great if you're just trying to preserve, but you got to see where do we want to take this? Do we want to make Niagara Falls better by doing this? Or do we want to just focus on a small segment of our history, of our people, whatever? Or do we want to look at this and get people together, like you said, man, and say, why couldn't we have an ice skating rink there? That can be turtle ice skating rink with the ability to host events there, create more opportunities for private investment in the area, right? Because if you make this a landmark status and then you make it a cultural 50,000 jobs, 208 million, that sounds cool, but those are minimum wage jobs. You create business, opportunity for businesses to invest in there, and you create an opportunity for the visitors to come in and actually love the area, stay in that general vicinity. You're going to increase the wages in that area.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your
Sorry, I
comments.
wasn't trying to hide everything, but I really wanted to get that out.
No, that's perfectly fine. There's a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, you had like 4 or 5 things that I'm trying to in my head to keep them straight. So, first of all, Dr. B's presentation of the data, he pulled it from a different start. There's not, like, he didn't go out and specifically analyze only white and Native American people. He pulled the data from this, because he's a data scientist. He uses data from somewhere else, because he's not going out canvassing people. He's not going and doing surveys. He's pulling data from other data sets. And that happened to be the data set that compared trauma, historical trauma in 2 groups of people. And that's all it was. And if you take anything away from his presentation, it was that there's an impact, right? There's a social impact to actions that we do and we don't do. And for him, he found that there was 20 million? Was it 10 million? 10 million? 10 million. 10 million a year. And what does that 10 million a year tell you? That 10 million a year really is the cost for people, us, in insurance premiums, in other things that we have to, additional burden, that if we can kind of figure out a way to lower that curve a little bit, it becomes less of a financial burden to the community as a whole. That's the only essence. It's not comparing just, whites against Native Americans or any other group. That was the takeaway there. Now, regarding your economic question, I've heard the second time I heard this ice rink thing from that same spot. The only problem with that ice rink thing is you'd only do an ice rink in the winter, right? What are you going to do in the summer? What's the space of that? Okay, hold on. Now, Centennial Park has a domed environment, right? And that's where that ice rink and everything else was supposed to be, is in that particular project. But what we're looking to do is not only look at the social impact of what this turtle can do for the community, but we're also looking, there's a tool called InPlan, I-N-P-L-A-N, and that's an economic analysis tool. What it does, and goes back to your other question about minimum wage jobs and everything, it takes a look at 3 factors. It takes a look at direct impact, and direct economic benefit, and that is taxes that are generated by the building, employment, and all those kind of things. What benefit will it bring economically because of its being there as a center? What will it bring economically to the area? The second thing that it does is it takes a look and says, because this building is here and it's going to consume this amount of material per year, programming, food, papers for printers, that whole, everything that's going to need to live, it creates something called an indirect benefit. An indirect benefit is all the suppliers that would feed the turtle to keep it running, right? So bakeries, maybe different restaurants, prints. Just I can't at the top of my head. I'm just trying to figure this out for your question. But the third thing it looks at induced benefits. So you have direct benefits, what that building, what that program will do for the community. Indirect benefits is all the services outside those 4 walls that service that particular building, that particular program. And then induced benefits are what the employees of all those other services, like coffee shops, hotels, all those other, what's the benefit to that? So it's like a 3-layer economic projection of benefits. We're looking to see if we can pull that plan together. So that would address more of your question about, the wages are, minimal. We only pulled this information out from the newspaper, right? We didn't do any of the analysis, we just, this looked like, it's in line with what we want to do. It's information, so let's give it out to people. Is there another question?
Just to kind of comment on where the closest community center is and kind of being lazy, we're still healing. The closest community center is an hour and 20 minutes away in Cattaraugus. And as somebody who spent a lot of time recently in Niagara Falls, there's so many people who need a place to go, who need a place to heal, who need the culture. As somebody who grew up disconnected from it, because of the culture, I've quit drinking, I've quit smoking, I'm a better person because of it. Kids around here need a place to go to stay out of trouble, to be connected. It's healing, it's medicine, not just for us, but for everybody. For somewhere to put powwows on. So I just think that's just really important because it's going to help so many people, not just job-wise or economically. And yeah, economically, people aren't drinking, they aren't being violent, they feel happier, they feel better. I took a 2-hour seminar on generational trauma and how it works in your DNA. And how there's so many people displaced because the last residential school closed in 1997, the year I was born. Right here in Niagara Falls, and on the other side of the border, was the biggest, a huge population of Native people that were just sent back into the world with no knowledge of our culture and no knowledge of anything. So, Niagara Falls needs a place for us to go. It needs a place for all these kids who don't know who they are to go, and a place to heal and to be ourselves.
Thank you. Back there.
I think it's important to frame this discussion in the context of cultural heritage tourism. Because I think a lot of people are under the impression that it's just about saving one building. And they're not thinking about all of the other connected dots to the cultural heritage tourism in this area, right? The turtle is a key component to helping revitalize this whole entire area and its connectivity to the cultural heritage of this area. How many people, by show of hands, know that right across the street was a park that was renamed Cataract House Park because it was a site of a historic Underground Railroad center? Okay, that's literally across the street. Our team right now is working with a design firm to create a memorial on that site. How many people have visited the new Visitor Experience Center inside the State House? Okay. Our team members and other indigenous people have created an indigenous-centric visitor center. It's totally different than the old one that was sitting there before. It has interpretive materials. It has a 4D video that talks about the history of this area, the power, and it has a lot of Underground Railroad heritage in it. That is connected. How many people have seen over the 24 the last thing I said. In the first week of April, we are going to have a solar eclipse. And if you have any doubts in your mind about creating spaces for people when they arrive here, I encourage you, get out of your house and walk down to that pause the first week of April. Do you know that rooms were being booked 2 years ago from Airbnbs for people that's coming here just to see the solar eclipse standing at the falls? And when you go down there and you see all of these people, how many people were here when Big Belinda walked across the falls? They are predicting that it's going to be 10 times more people that are coming to this city just for the solar eclipse.
And do you know how much they're charging for rooms down on Buffalo Avenue for that eclipse?
How much?
Take a guess.
I say about
$1,200 a night for a room.
$1,000 for a room,
For a room.
right? So when you go down there and see with your own eyes, I want you to also think about how many people have not had an opportunity to learn about the culture and the rich heritage of our indigenous community members that are directly connected to what they are looking at. I want you to go down there and see that with your own eyes, and then decide whether or not you think that this is something important that you should care about. This is a part of a larger vision, and it's important that we clearly understand that. If we want to revitalize the city, we have to do it collectively. We have to do it collectively. When you look at Niagara Falls and we look on the Canadian side, historically, both of these areas on both sides of the river started off with hospitality industries and everything else. One of the differences is Niagara Falls went in this direction in terms of industry with factory work. They kind of took their eyes off heritage and tourism. Then when those factories and stuff dry up, now let's go back and look and try to do something in terms of hospitality and tourism. The Canadian side never took their eyes off it. That's why it looks the way that it does. That's generational investment in the hospitality industry and tourism. Us over here, we went in this direction. So now we're striving to get back in line with taking advantage of what it is that we actually have. But a part of that, again, is you have to see the larger picture of all of our cultural assets that we actually have here. And if we keep knocking things down and not preserve them, how many people are seeing the Jens building along Main Street? We put the Polly King portraits in front of us. Most people just simply drive right past that. Right? Now that you have to look at the artwork of a world-renowned artist that's right here in Niagara Falls, but you have to look at the architecture too. Willfully, all that art will inspire people to have a vision of what they can do to connect to this cultural heritage tourism. I'm going to keep repeating that so that people understand that that is what is being done. Not what we hope to happen, not what we wish will happen, but what is happening. What is happening, and you have to be a part of it.
Thank you. We're just it. We're right at 8 o'clock, and we want to make sure we can get every. Well, is it almost 9? Ooh, we're almost 9. I'm sorry, this clock is a little off. So anyway, I want to thank everybody. Please take. There should be cards on the table. Take the card. Use the QR code. Give us your feedback. We're looking for input. Right? This is a community conversation. We want to get your input on what you would like to see and things that we might have missed that you'd like to hear more about. And thank you very much for your time, and have a great week. And also Wednesday, please come to the town hall, the city council meeting. Geez, too many meetings. City council meeting 6 p.m. If you want to speak, which we encourage you to do so, please be there about 5:15. And take care, and thank you very much for your time.